I have some great expert lawyers with me today, Tracy Siska, Laura McNeil, Steve Greenberg, and Xavier Pope. We're talking about the confidence man, the con man, the scams that they run. And they're internet scams, there are mail scams, there are phone scams. But I promise you, before the end of this month, some scammer, some con man is going to intersect with you in your life one way or another. What are the signs? I mean, we need to tell people, because you guys know, you see this all the time from a legal point of view. What are the signs? Because I always tell people, one, for example, places like the government, the IRS, they don't call you.
They don't.
They do not call you. My mother was called, and she called me and said, the IRS called. No, they didn't. No. I didn't even let her finish the sentence. So the IRS called and said, I owe $2,300. No, they didn't. The IRS does not call you. That's the first thing, right? If they call and say, hey, listen, they're getting ready to garnish your bank accounts, they're getting ready to seize all your... No, that's not true. They don't call, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't threaten to arrest you either. Another client talked to me about her being threatened to be arrested. I said, if they were going to arrest you, they'd be at your door. They're not threatening you.
There's a DEA scam that's going on it's been going on for at least a decade now, where people get a call from, hey, we're with the DEA and you've been buying illegal drugs. And some of the people, the law of averages, right? Some people say, I haven't been buying any drugs at all. But some people are either buying illegal drugs or they're buying drugs, legitimately, but now they're scared. And, you have to send this much money as a civil penalty or we're going to arrest you. That's been going on for years.
Right. I think the best advice I would give is, number one, if it looks too good to be true, it's probably true. Trust your instincts. People ignore their instincts and say, I knew something was off. Trust your instincts. And I think it's also important to make sure if they're asking you to transfer any account numbers, if someone's cold calling you and asking you for your account number, or to transfer funds anywhere, those are huge red flags. And again, my mother's been scammed a million times, a bank calling, allegedly her bank saying they need to lock her account down, it's been compromised, we need your account number. And so I think those are three major red flags, as you would say, to look out for.
And I think also these same scammers, ask them for their information. Ask ways to verify them. And when you start asking questions about verifying them, and then they'll start to back off. They don't want to get their information. They don't want a legitimate email attached to a company that you can actually research and look at.
That's the sign. That's where you hear click.
Right.
Ask
or if they have a foreign accent, a real thick foreign accent, and they say they're from the IRS.
Yeah,
that's
IRS,
probably
the IRS knocks. That's what they do. They don't call.
That's the language they use.
Right.
Yeah.
Knock on the door.
And scammers pressure you to act immediately. You got to act on this right now.
I'm on someone's list for car insurance. And it's like insurance, even though we got done with the payments. So a car that got totaled in an accident many years ago now and is gone. But every 6 months, we're contacted by email and mail. They're just hard after us on this scam related to our old car that's 3 or 4 years, 4 years gone from us. But it's hardcore, and they just this is 5 years now. They just keep coming after us for this. And
that time is important. Act now. You are put in a position, particularly if you're of a vulnerable population like senior citizens, give up personal information right now, the intense pressure on them. And you don't see a lot of senior citizens committing crimes. And so in their brain, they want to be able to protect themselves from if they unfortunately did something that they accidentally maybe was illegal. And so that timing element, pushing you to do something in that moment, is one of the biggest elements of why scams work.
That's a big, big flag. And what worries me is mail fraud. I've seen, and I've got examples of them, letters that they don't look like IRS letterhead. They've actually taken the IRS letterhead and put it on a letter and sent it. It's the IRS letterhead. They've hijacked it and put it on a letter. So you look at it and go on the website, well, hell, that's the IRS letterhead. If it's an organization but the promise, the demand, or the problem doesn't sound right, then you've got to get personal contact, right? You've got to call somebody and say, hey, I got a letter here. Is this a department? Is this a request that you guys would make or whatever? And you get stuck in voice jail, but you got to figure something out.
Right.
I mean, this is a multi-billion-dollar problem.
You also have to think about the extensions that some of the websites may be used. It looks like the IRS, it's IRS dot another extension, not gov. It's this look-alike website that may be able phishing your information as well.
What about these debt collection scams with these people calling to say, you owe money and you pay us this, we're going to forgive that? Because they have somehow gotten a hold of somebody's numbers, they've hacked in, they've bought something, and they know what people owe. How do people protect themselves from that? What do you recommend people do when they get somebody calling saying, you owe $2,000, pay us $500, we'll wipe your debt out?
The Federal Trade Commission allows for individuals to get one free copy of their credit report. So you want to be able to get that, and then you want to call those credit agencies and get a full copy of your credit report, walk yourself through it, see what's on there, and find verify the accuracy, and call the different the companies that are there to verify the debt. I mean, that's important because there are rules that protect consumers in that case.
If someone calls and says, hey, we'll forgive your $5,000 for $1,000 after you get past the initial shock of it sounds too good to be true, as she said, then I think you want to call the actual company that you owe the debt to. Just all people have to do to prevent getting scammed when they get a call is say, give me your number, let me call you back. I'll call you back in 5 minutes.
Do your homework.
Yeah, I support what you said, because a lot of times before it hits your credit report, there's like a 30-day or 60-day window. And so it may not show up and it might be legit. And so I think it's important to go straight to the source. That's always going to be my advice to any client. You go straight to the source. If it's a certain department store, call that department store and they'll say, this is the credit bureau or the credit collection company that we use, and you call them directly.
One of the ones I've seen recently that was shocking to me, but we had a couple on the show, is the parent/grandparent scam. You talk about lazy scammers, but they get the number. How they get it, I don't know. But they get the number and they call up and say, Grandma, do you know who this is? Like it's playing the game. And they say, well, is this Carol? Yes, it's Carol. Okay, now they know she's got a granddaughter named Carol. Then she says, I'm in so much trouble. I've got to have $500 or I'm going to go to jail. Please don't tell Mom. Can you send me $500 by Western Union? Please don't tell my parents, they'll kill me. Honest to God, this is going like wildfire. And the couple that we had on, someone called them, got the daughter's name and said, we have your daughter. And she couldn't reach the husband. And they were demanding $10,000 right now, or they're going to kill the daughter. And she couldn't reach the husband. He was on a flight. Fortunately, she contacted a friend who said, no, wait a minute. They actually got the daughter out of class at school and verified that she was A-okay. But they wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't paying off. If it's 1 out of 100 times, then you've got $10,000, and they're running these on phone banks.
If you're making $500 a day doing it, you get one person to take $500 a day, 5-day work week.
Yeah.
You're making 6 figures now.
Once again, they are playing on urgency. They are playing on people's fears, things that are close and personal to them, and maximizing that to be able to gain confidence in that moment that it's legitimate, and then transferring that into to the scams that they're doing on people.
I think we're saying it real clear. You've got to talk to the source. You can't give in to the pressure, because time pressure is what's getting people to pull the trigger, right?
Exactly. That's the time pressure. It's you must do this now. It doesn't matter what the act is. Pay this money. Get this person free. Do this, do that. And it's right now. Act immediately, because they know that if that call is done, well, they'll move on to the next call. But they will try to maximize the urgency of that moment as much as possible.
And also they're maximizing it because, Xavier, they want to make sure that you don't call your daughter or your son.
Exactly.
Right? Or your neighbor or your friend who's to verify the legitimacy of it. So that's also part of the scam before they, in terms of their credibility being compromised.
Right. You look at anything, they're always preying on the urgency. You go to buy a car and the dealership
Perfect
knows
example.
once you walk out,
Yeah.
you're
perfect
probably not going to
example.
buy the car, or you go to buy a timeshare.
Yes.
Go to a timeshare sales thing, and they put all the pressure on you, and then because they know you aren't going to call up later and say, I want the timeshare. So this is no different. You got to strike when the iron's hot.
It's a different form of sales. I mean, any type of sales training, people have one and they have multiple rebuttals until it gets to the end when they're gone. Scams are working the same way.
Well, one of the things that I am stunned by are these romance scams out of Nigeria. We do the catfish shows about these people, and I thought I had seen it all until recently. I had a woman on that was convinced that this was the love of her life. 2 years, never met him, never done a FaceTime with him, hadn't done a phone call with him. It was all text, and she had sent him about $300,000. I had her on the show. He had stolen these pictures from somebody. She only had 6 pictures, and he was sending her all these love letters and stuff like that. I found the guy whose pictures were stolen, had him on satellite so she could see the real person, said, I'm so sorry, that's not me. I had my picture stolen. Said, you see the guy, all these documents he had sent, he was stuck in Africa and construction site, had been robbed on the way to the airport, excuse after excuse after excuse. She said, oh my God, I feel so stupid. She left the show. The guy started talking to her again. She sold her house and sent him the money.
Wow.
After the show?
After I
all that
introduced him on satellite that it wasn't him, and she sold her house and sent him the money to come meet her. He didn't show. She came back on the show still believing he was real. I brought the real guy in from North Carolina. She only had 6 pictures. We brought the 6 shirts he was in the pictures in, showed her him and the 6 shirts, and let her meet him in person. And she now swears she totally believes it this time. But here's this woman that worked 30 years, gave him all of her money, sold her house, gave him all the money, has nowhere to live, totally broke.
But that doesn't sound like that. Sounds like it started out as a scam, and there might be some issues that she has. If you had her on and she knew it wasn't, it wasn't real.
The key is romance.
Yeah,
The key is romance, because the center of romance, people want this fairy tale life. And the person that's on the romance scam, they're utilizing these fancy and taking advantage of that. The person is conjuring in their mind all these different scenarios. And so even when they're presented with the fact that it isn't true, what they're doing is going along. This is part of the romance, the adventure, the intrigue. Oh, wow, now it's Dr. Phil is involved. They even brought another guy with pictures. This is all playing into the element of excitement that's with romance.
And also, they always promise, when I come, I'm coming with millions.
That's why, I've got millions, but I need your money to get the millions.
I need your money to get the millions.
Listen, I'm stuck here. I just have to pay the tax. I have to pay the levy. I have to do this or that. And then I'm going to come with $10 million. I'm 30 years younger than you. And I'm just crazy in love with you. I'm going to take care of you the rest of my life.